purpose of a house wrap is to prevent any moisture from getting on your OSB and starting to decay it. To install the Tyvek, the tools you'll probably need is a tack hammer, standard tape measure, a utility knife, a chalk line. So I'll take my Tyvek, I'll start back here, I'm going to overlap it and then tape it off later. Okay, now we have the Tyvek on, or the house wrap, I want to cut out for my windows. Okay, I want to leave a little bit of a flap to fold that in so I can protect all the wood. Now we're ready to put ice and water on. The next step is installing your ice and water. That'll go down on your windowsill here, wrap over your Tyvek. That's to prevent any water from getting into the house and rotting out your sill plate. Now to start, I cut a piece a little bit longer than the window opening itself. So you want to peel off the back, try to get as level as possible. Once this stuff sticks, it sticks good. So you get this piece on, find your corners, and then you fold this one down in, and then you'll fold your corners in. So I cut a little piece, and you want it to stick out a little bit. So I'm going to peel this off, try to get it in the corner real nice. Then you take your utility knife, slit it, bend one this way, one that way, so now it's all protected. Okay, before we put in our window, I want to cut this Tyvek on both corners, because after the window's in, I want to put ice and water on and then Tyvek over the ice and water. Now that we have the ice and water in, we're ready to install our window. Lift it up, put it in the opening. And to help you guys out there that are doing this by yourself, the small windows, I'll slide it to one edge, mark it, then I'll slide it to the other edge, mark it, because I want to center my window, and then I'll split the difference. Make sure it's level. Put a screw in. You can use roofing nails, big-headed nails of any sort. Put it in the slot. Put two in there to hold it. At the top here, I cut the Tyvek back and lifted it up. You put the ice and water over the nail fin of the window all the way across. Once that's on and it's sealed, then we go ahead and put the Tyvek over that. And the reason we do it is if any water gets on here, we want it to continue running down, almost like flashing on a roof. So if any water gets there, it runs right out the bottom instead of into the structure of the house. The J channel goes around your windows, goes around doors, and that's where the siding will be accepted into the J channel to hide the cuts. Measure the size of your window or your door, add 3 inches. So I'll take my snips, snip the face, snip the back, cut it off. Now that we have this cut, I'm going to want to cut out 1.5 inches on both sides. Okay, now I want to flare it out because I want a nice tight fit on the face. So I'm flaring the back out so when you put it up there, this edge is tight to the window. So now we're going to do the sides here. Add 2 inches. Okay, so when I cut this is my bottom piece. It'll go up like this. I want to leave this flap so I can fold it down and around. Once again, I want to flare it. And then this face is a 1/2 inch longer. So now I can take my flat nose pliers and bend this around. That way there's no raw edges showing whatsoever. Now we're going to install a corner base. You're going to need your tape measure, a speed square, pencil, your flat nose pliers, your tin snips. So the first thing we're going to do is measure the height of the corner. Hook onto the bottom here. I'm going to measure up to the soffit, add a 1/2 inch. I'm hanging below all the wood by a 1/2 inch so the water can't wick back. So now hook your tape on the end, mark the 84 3/4. I like to take my speed square, square the line up. We use this line here, to cut, I'm gonna use my snips. Here, cut that, tab, so then I can come in here nice and straight. Cut to there. Okay, so now I'm gonna need my left snips. So now I can come in this direction and cut this part of the corner. Now after it's cut, some of this got bent up a little bit. You can take your pliers, square it up. Now to install, you want to get it to where it's square. Now there's slots in here, and I don't like using the slots. I'll come over here as close as I can to the flange. Screw there, screw here. Here and here, that gives you a lot more stability to where these won't bend as easy. We'll repeat the process at the top and the bottom. One important thing to remember when you're installing this corner base is to make sure that your square is not flattened out or pushed to one side or the other. The reason I like to use a two-piece corner base and cap is you can go ahead and side. When you're done siding, you snap this cap on and you put it where you need it, put a screw at the bottom. What's nice about this, what I really like about it, is if it gets dinged by a lawnmower or a car hits or something like that, you just pop it off, get a new one, snap it right on. Some of the older steel siding and vinyl, all their nails are behind the siding, so there's really no way to replace it if it does get dented. So this is the system that I like the most. Put our starter on and get some siding installed. Okay, so here we have our H starter. I like using this starter because you don't have to stand on your head to see if the panel's locked in. The way this works, you come up 2 1/8 inches, but you want to hang down a 1/2 inch. This lock goes in that H starter like this. Now that I have the first piece in, you can screw it off about every 16 inches. So when you screw it in, you want it just so it's touching the metal to where it can still expand and contract. If you suck it in too tight, it could create some oil canning, and we don't want that. What's also nice about screwing it off, if you have an area in the wall that's bowed, you can adjust the screw to make sure that's straight instead of bowing in. Make sure that it's locked in. I can feel that piece of metal on the back of the starter, so everything looks good. So now we'll start the next piece. So this is all a hidden fastener system. We have a top lock. This bottom lock here ties right into that one, and then you put the screws in the next piece and it hides all your fasteners, so there's nothing really showing. I'm Ted from TruLog Siding. I'm going to show you how to cut and install our double 4 1/2 lap siding. You want to use a Lennox, Tinaroo, or Diablo ferrous cutting metal blade. It has teeth in there, so it draws air through there and won't burn the coating. So I'll go ahead and cut this now and show you how it works. When you cut our siding, or any metal siding, you want to pierce it first instead of cutting it right here, because then it'll burn the blade up. So what you want to do is come down here, right on the corner. Okay, with these blades, it won't burn the coating, so it doesn't void the warranty, but it gives you a nice cut. We lock the first piece in here. We're gonna have a splice here. You always want the splices away from where you're walking. You don't want to see the splice. Start on the back here, work to the front, put a screw in the center. Check this side again, make sure it's in position. Now, what you want to do here is lock your next piece in. You want to be lapping about a 1/4 inch. You don't want these two pieces buttoned together. You just want to lap it about a 1/4 inch, 3/8 at the most. In this area here, this panel was not laying as nice as I wanted it to, like the bottom here. So what I'll do is I'll pop this off. I'll just bend this a little bit, doesn't take much. You gotta do this once in a while on siding. Okay, so I'll lap it, 1/4 inch, and now I want to put my screw on the very end of this lap. So now it's laying a lot tighter. Installing your steel siding, what you want to do is stagger your seams. I have one way down here. I'll put one here, and the next one I'll probably put over here if I need to. I really don't like it when there's like one here, one there, what they call stair stepping all the way or back and forth. To me, that just doesn't look good. So if you can stagger it like this, I think it makes the job look a lot better. Under the window, we need to measure our dimensions to transfer it onto the piece of siding we're going to be installing. So to take my speed square, put it on top of my siding, butt it to where it hits inside the J channel. I'll come back 1/8 of an inch and I'll mark it. I'll do the same on this side. So you take my tape, I hook it onto my last piece of siding here. Measure to it. Here we need 57 inches. We need 92 3/4. 7.5 and 7.5. So we're gonna go 57 inches, 92 3/4. Come up 7.5. Mark it. Transfer that all the way down. Now that we have it all marked out, I have Midwest snips, which I like. They seem to cut this 26 gauge steel a lot better. It's a lot thicker than most sidings out there. So go through your top lock. When you get here, they turn the corners tight. Here we need to put in some sill trim. Measure it. It needs to be 35 5/8. Universal sill trim. We use this on the long cuts, so it hides that ragged edge. Also gives you a little play as far as moving it up if you have too much of a space. 35 5/8. So we'll mark that. Once again, take your tin snips, cut it. Take this, make sure your length is right. And then you just take your hammer and tap it on, and it's ready to install. Okay, so our last piece, I'm going to run from the corner to the window, and same on the other side. I'm not going to put any siding up above the window because we have bold window trim and a crown that'll fill that space. I measured from this block here up to the soffit. We're at 9 3/4. For 9 3/4, I just need to cut this nail strip off. Now we'll put this piece in. Screwing in the last piece here. Going right through the face of the siding, because we have a crown that's going to cover this. You don't have to worry about getting it extremely tight. That crown just snaps into the soffit J and covers that last piece. What we have here is our crown. I like to call it his freeze board. And it's made to go up into the soffit J and cover the last cut of the last row siding. What we have here is a little notching tool. If you look at it, it's the same tool that's used for the end caps and gutters. Just want to crimp it like so. And that little bit there will grab the hem of the soffit J and we'll let this come out. You get 3 or 4 in the center and then 1 on the ends. All right, get it started in the soffit J. You need 21 inch. Notch it. Once again, slide it between the soffit panel and the J channel. And there you go. So now you can see we have a gap up here. Since I'm so close to my soffit, very little weather's going to get in there. If it does, it's going to run down the J channels. And the reason I did that is I'm doing bold window trim on here. So that bold window trim will cover that gap so nobody will be able to see it. So how this attaches, this goes in between the J channel and the window. Okay, that's why you wrap these corners real tight, because you don't want anything spreading open and letting this come out. So I'll get it started in there and just gently push it in. Now for the sides, 345 it again, get your mark. Once you have that mark, you hold it up in here, butt it to this one, get your bottom mark, and do the same thing. Cut your top one at a 45 because I want all my splices up so they're not so visible. What we'll do is we'll just trim this back a little bit. On the bottom again, you'll cut this back flange out, and that's going to hang down. So now to put this in, this little deal here, you want it behind this piece and try to get it on the back side of the other flange. Once that's in, there's no way that's going to come out. So now we'll do the other side. Put it in up at the top, like we did. Get it between the window and the J channel. If it seems like it's a little tight, if you have a nice clean block of wood, take your hammer and lightly tap it. The reason this is so tight is because I took the corners and I wrapped one around the other, so it makes everything nice and tight. There's no way the wind's gonna pull that away. 45 this, cut this section out. I'll butt it up here. Mark the other side where the window's at. 45 these corners just a little bit. It makes it a little bit easier to get them in. What I want to do is get this part behind this little lip here. Slide it in. Cold window trim look on a house. Maintenance free. If you want, you can put a bead of caulk right here. I usually use DAPT clear. Silicone likes to attract dust to it, and then you have a black ring around it later, where the DAPT clear doesn't seem to do that, and it looks a lot better. How to determine the pitch of your roof. The easiest way to do that, you can take a 2-foot level. You want to put it up against your soffit. You want to move it up until she's level right here. Then take your pencil and mark it, and then mark the 2-foot area. Now that I have my level line here, I want to take my tape where I butted it on this end, measure, I'm right at 2 foot. Once we have that point, take your level and level upward. Get it plumb, right there, put a mark. 2 foot over and measure up. So you butt your tape there and measure down. We're right at 12 inches. We're at a 612 because we came over 24 and we're 12 inches up. So half and half would make that a 612. So now that we know we have a 612 pitch on the house that we're doing, I'll show you the framing square. So this is your run and this is your rise. So on a 612 pitch, we want to be 6 here and we want to be 12 there. So you can put it down here on this area here, 612, or you can come up here and do 612, or you can go on the inside, 612. So our mark is right here. This is 6.5 inches up, and that is for our bird box right here, from here up to in our J channel. I already have that marked. So now to do this, when I go over here, I'm going to be running out of room, so I'm going to use the 612 on the inside of the framing square. So I'll go 6 right here, 612, and I'll run it down to my mark, which I have right here. Once you have that, then you just mark it. So now that we have our mark, I'm going to use my red snips because I always want the waist side on this side. I'll go ahead and cut this off, and now we're ready to install. Now that this piece is cut, we'll take the sill trim here and we'll slide that onto this piece and then we'll install it. All right, so we're very tight in this area. It's hard to get this piece in. So what you want to do is take this J channel, take it, fold it back. We can always straighten it out after the fact. So now that it's folded, we'll take the piece of siding, tuck it in here, get it in place, locked up in place. Just fold the J channel back. Then we want to push this up. Now I want to make sure that this is level. I'll take my torpedo level. But there we go. Get the measurements for the other side. We're going to measure this one. So I'll measure up into my J channel. We're at 6 1/4. So we'll write that down. We want from here over to the door, 54 1/2. Now I want the measurement to this point, and I want to lap that no more than 3/8 of an inch. 59 3/4. Now I want to come up to where I can get above the door. So when we do that, we hook on, measure the J channel. I'm at 3 inches, and I want to add 3/8 of an inch because we need to come in here and go down. So now I'm going to cut my overall length, 59 3/4, and that's where we'll cut it off. From the cut side, which is going to go against the bird box here, I need to come up 6 1/4 inches. So I'll hook onto my bottom lock, go 6 1/4, and mark that. Take your framing square. We want to get that pitch. So I'm going to go 12 here and 6. I'll slide it down till I come to that point. I'll mark that. We need to measure for the door. 54 1/2. And we needed to come up 3 3/8. So I'll hook on here again, come up 3 3/8. Take your speed here, come up, and you come across. Okay, now we're ready to cut these points out. Okay, a little trick to help you out. I'll always snip this corner here so it's not sharp, and that makes it easier for the siding to lock in. All right, so now I want to get this up here and slide it in behind this piece here and then into the sill trim. Now we have it in place, so I can just screw it off. We want to measure for the next piece. So I'll take my tape, get in line with the top lock over here, and then I'll measure all the way to this side. And we need 99. I'll hook on, come over here, mark 99. You can go 6/12. We need a longer cut, so I'm going to go 24/12. So I doubled it. So there I'm going to go on 24 inches. Over here I'm going to put this on 12, and that gets me a long enough angle here, or a long enough straight bar. We'll come on the other side, do the same thing. Put it on 24, on 12, mark it. What I like to do is come up here, cut this butt lock, pull it out of the way, so then I can get my snips in here, and then cut this angle. I always want the waste on this lower part of the blade. That way it doesn't wave this piece of siding that I'm going to be installing. So now I'll take my green snips, because I want the waste again on that stationary part, so it waves this side and not this side. Then I'll come in this direction. Okay, once I get to that point, then you can flip it like this, come in here with snips, and cut that last piece out. Snip this bottom lock here. My green one's on the bottom, and red one's on top. Go ahead and measure for my next piece, which looks like 61. Now I'll install it. Now I'll put my piece up here, tap that side in, tap this side in. Now we can cut the next piece. Our last piece is 23.5, 23.5. What I'm gonna do is come back here. So now I'm gonna use 24/12 out here. I'll mark that. So now on this side, I'm gonna go 24 and 12 on the outside, because I have enough room to do that. So now this is our last piece. We don't want to put a nail in it. So what I recommend is on the inside of this lock here, put a bead of DAP clear, or you can put it up into this top lock. That way when you lock it in, that dries, it won't come out. But I won't be doing that because I got to take this all down again for another video. So once you get it in, and that's it. So in this area here, with everything being so tight, what I did is I took a piece of J channel and I cut this face off here, this part here. Then I put it up, that way I get my siding in. So now, to finish it up, I'll cut the back of this J channel off. Little trick I learned when things get really tight, too many pieces or in a short area. So you cut that back off, so now you can put a bead of silicone or DAP in here and slide it in behind. Mark where this is at, where the two meet together. Pull this out, do an angle cut here. Snips, cut that. Install it. We can now install our exterior corners. We want to grab the one side and then push, it locks on. We'll push it up, going to mark fascia board here, 7/16. Push it over. I'll just cut this out. Okay, so now you want to hook this little lip right back here onto this on the corner base. Look, we're nice and tight here. Gives you a nice finished look. After you have the corner on, I would suggest right down here putting a sheet metal screw in there into the corner, and that'll prevent the corner from sliding down.